Fuck. Dude, all right. So was it 1947 that this MJ-12 thing started? I think it was, right? Because Roswell came out, and then
it aligns with the Roswell incident in many ways. Yes.
yeah, so
1947.
19,
But that was when Truman was in office.
yeah, and Eisenhower's he's the deputy director of the army, right?
Eisenhower,
Army chief of staff. That's what he was.
chief of staff. Yeah, and he was the first ever chief of staff for the U.S.
And so they Roswell happens. Truman gets told about it, and then he decides to get some dudes together to like investigate it. And during that process is when the first headline came out about the flying saucers, right? And then once the MJ-12 group was convened, they when they actually got some advisors together, they immediately switched it to the air balloon thing.
Well, let's set this up a little bit though. What is MJ-12? Majestic 12, as they say. What is it, right? It's supposedly this group of highly successful government officials from various levels, government, military, etc., that Truman created as a very classified group to assess, monitor, communicate with the extraterrestrial beings on this planet, and also recover crashed UFOs, etc. And it seemed that, to me, it's very much aligned with the Roswell incident in that there was no kind of government organization that existed before that incident like this. And so, the whole story of the Roswell is like, okay, they put out the newspaper articles like freaking government got the UFO and all that. And then boom, next day, oh, blah, 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 the whole story is weather blown, etc. And during that time period, right, not only was Majestic 12 created, CIA was created, national security committees were created. All this stuff is consistent with this, which is just quite amazing to me. But that's my setup.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm done. I just want to make sure we kind of put the premise here, set the stage.
So when I was on my last road trip, I was talking to Mr. Green, and he had me listen to a podcast, and it was the gentleman who was he was a physicist, and he was working on one of the crafts. It was super compartmentalized. It was on a Rogan podcast.
Was it Bob Lazar? Yeah, Bob Lazar is awesome.
All right, so made me think about one of the things I got from that stuck with me was that the consideration that, hey, holding on to these secrets is not so much as I think the popular opinion that hey, we don't want everybody to freak out, and more so that they're like, hey, we got to keep stuff secret because we don't want to give up the technology. And that made me, when I was reading about watching that thing on Majestic 12 today, it's like that was a major consideration. Some of the more conspiracy theory stuff we'll talk about later on, I'm sure, because it was the peak, the Cold War had hit. And it was the beginning of the Cold War, actually. And selling secrets, getting the Soviets is a big freaking deal. So all of a sudden, it was like that. To me, seems like probably
you're referring to the JFK part, right?
Yeah, later on. But I think just from the beginning, on them making it say a secret rather than it being like, hey, we can't trust the people with this information. It almost seems to me like it more a higher priority to them at the time would have been, we can't let the Soviets get this. We can't let this information get out.
Are you talking about at the beginning, like in the 40s, or are you talking about like a decade later or so?
Even in the 40s, because we're looking at like the 2 years after we bombed Japan, right? Mm-hmm. And that technology was exposed. So so you're looking at just from that standpoint, technology is a big fucking deal, and we saw what happens at the peak of warfare. It's especially in their minds, that was like the epitome of. We're like, starting to discuss mutually assured destruction, right? You know, and this and that. So like letting that technology get to our enemies is a big fucking deal. You know, they're still very military minded, I'm sure. 2 years after, you know, the Great War, Second Great War.
You know, imagine though if all the governments got together and just focused on, hey, we're not going to give up our intel, you know, on certain defense things, but we want to form a international collaborative UFO organization where if you guys show us what you have, we'll show you what we have, and we'll give our top 10 scientists if you give your top 10, and let's just see what we can actually come up with. Imagine how much further we'd be down the field.
Well, absolutely. If we could all work together, that's like
the
dream of the world.
I agree with you.
But just on UFO stuff to figure out what they're doing, you know, re-engineering it or
it'd be amazing.
Engineering it, you know.
It'd be amazing if they did with medicine. It'd be amazing if they did that with getting water to the world.
Anything.
Yeah, like I mean, I agree with you. That would be amazing. But I think like if you look at the mindset at that time, I mean, like you have 2 back-to-back wars within 3 decades. That basically the entire generation was lost to each war. So I think that their mindset at that time was kind of like, you know, very nationalist, borderline libertarian. You know what I mean? I think at that.
Well, I mean, speaking of the world wars, specifically World War II, you know, it's not, and you talk about the relationship with the Soviets, but you know, it doesn't seem like that was immediate, right? That was like kind of down the line. But ironically, a lot of people I don't think realize that a lot of our space technology comes from a German that was a Nazi German.
Oppenheimer?
What?
Oppenheimer? Is that his name?
No. I mean, that's a separate thing for sure. That was part of the Manhattan Project and everything.
My bad after you.
But what I'm talking about is more like rocket technology. And this guy, his name, Vernon von Braun, I believe.
Okay, yeah, tracking. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, he was like against Nazi stuff, but the Nazis like basically forced him into being like, you're going to do like the science shit for us, right? And then when the World War II ended, US basically like stole this guy. Like, you're going to come work for us. You're going to be a huge part of NASA. Huge part. I mean, he's essentially the reason
why we fly
spaceships to the outer space. Right, exactly. He's like the main guy, right? And so like, I think a lot of people, if you ask the general population, like, you heard of this guy? I really doubt that people would know who this guy is, but yet he is a big reason why we are where we are. But what I guess my backstory to this is that supposedly, going back to this Majestic 12, which is all tied into this, is that Nazis had access to the same alien technology that we had in Roswell. And we kind of took that technology along with us with this scientist and applied it to what's happening here. And it kind of shaped our policies as a government in many ways.
You know how everybody knows von Braun if you're an 80s child, because well, light makes my face look super weird. But anyways, not that the bear face doesn't. but because of the joke from Back to the Future 3, when he's like, well, we were the Von Brauns.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Come on, Donnie, that was for you, buddy. Where you at, dude?
That's a good memory, dude. Man,
dude, that's hella good. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. What are you talking about in Back to the Future 3?
Yeah, it's Back to the Future 3. And he's like,
the cowboy one.
Yeah, he's like, well, he's like when they're at the graveyard at the beginning. He's like, well, we were the Von Browns, but then they changed the name to Brown. He's Doc Brown, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
Oh, does he really say that? I never caught that.
yeah, I'll send it to you on YouTube. It's probably findable.
That's funny.
Dude, but there's a lot of shit. I mean, we really should get into this shit because it's heavy duty crap, this fucking Majestic 12. Like, it's literally like the beginning of when all the secret, like, suppressing of UFOs, extraterrestrials, technology that we are using behind the scenes to excel our society, all this shit. That's when it all started, right? Is this secret government agency that was created by Truman to basically like assess, like, shit happened. It happened with the Germans. They had that shit. And now it's happening in the US. And we have to do something. We're either going to let everyone know, and think back then, right? Much different than it is now. We're going to let everybody know that just this fucking extraterrestrials walk around the earth. Or we're going to suppress it, fake everyone out, and we'll go on with our lives. La-di-da-di-da.
Well, that's why I was, so I was theorizing earlier. Is like, what's the main motive for it, and that my best guess, hey, we want to hide the technology. Like, we don't want, we don't want to give that technology up, more so than, like, that it's gonna be like everybody's gonna be like, and run around. Like, I mean, dude, like, World War II is pretty crazy, dude. Like, we don't really think of it as the way they thought of it, because to us it's like, well, it came and passed, and they're they didn't get invaded. But the mindset of the people during the 40s was that they could get invaded, at any given time. And then, in the 50s was we might get nuked. So people had to deal with crazy shit. And also, remember pre-Roswell, we talked about this with the Phenomenon documentary, that like it was almost common knowledge that there were flying saucers, because there's so many news articles about them in that short period of time between 45 and 47. And then the big, like, suppression shit.
Majestic 12.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the beginning. Yeah. And what's interesting about the creation of Majestic 12 is that Truman was in office, right? And then, like, of course, he has to deal with this situation post World War II, where you have this other technology that they know about over there, and somehow, all that stuff. And then it happens, and it's like, okay, what are we gonna do? We're gonna do this. Well, remember that Eisenhower, at the same time, was the head of military, basically, in the United States. And then, of course, he replaced Truman as president. And so when he replaced Truman as president, what was the plan? The plan was that we're going to continue with the same thing we've been doing for the past, 4 or 5 years, whatever. And I don't think Eisenhower had much of a choice other than to accept that. What else am I going to do? Am I going to tell everybody about all this shit, kind of thing? And so it went on. And then it morphed into other things, right? Eventually Project Blue Book and things like this. It's all kind of morphed out of this original thing. And so, I mean, I don't want to get into the JFK thing necessarily right now, but it kind of leads into that, is that eventually some president might say, I'm done with this shit. I'm just going to tell the people, it's crazy theory, but
whatever happened to JFK?
Well,
so whatever happened to that guy.
So there's this theory going around with this MJ12 thing, that they felt that he was going to release the secrets of the of what was going on with Roswell and our contact with the extraterrestrial beings, etc., to the Soviets. And if he didn't cut it out, there would be repercussions. And then a month after,
and it happened.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, that's pretty. I mean, like, there's a lot of theories on, JFK is like one of those things, but is it really interesting? And what was the other thing that was crazy? That the first Secretary of Defense was starts with an F. Do you mind chance know his name?
Yeah, I have it here somewhere. I know exactly what we're talking about. The very first Secretary of Defense, James Forstall.
He wanted to go public too, and he had a phone.
And he was the head of the original Majestic 12, supposedly. He was the head guy. This guy been everywhere. World War II, he's like a top-notch guy. And then so in 47, Roswell happens, and then supposedly this Majestic 12 gets created. In 1949, this guy's like, I've had enough with this shit. He's threatening to like go public with everything. What happens? That fool gets committed to some hospital, Navy hospital in Maryland, for quote unquote depression. And then next thing you know, that fool supposedly committed suicide by jumping out of 16th floor of the hospital.
He got Epstein.
Dude, I mean, like you think about how crazy that is, because like he was the Secretary of the Navy,
super accomplished,
World War II,
Crazy.
right?
Yeah.
And like, you know, he's an admiral before, and like all of this, right? So then you get this guy, you know, like it'd be committing him for depression. If he started speaking out at all about this stuff, he could be like, oh yeah, this guy's crazy. So it would sell, right? It'd be it'd be a good selling point. And then be like, oh yeah, no, this guy, you know, we're trying to save face. Like the whole thing, like it's pretty easy, especially back then with their level of CSI and, you know, and stuff, no cameras, etc., to sell like, hey, we're trying to, you know, protect the reputation of the Navy because he was saying some crazy shit, and they get him in there, and then they send an orderly in or whoever to freaking, you know, lob him out the window.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we're always talking about how we would love to know and be in that inner circle and really know what's going on. When you really like hear those stories, would you really want to know, like, how nervous would you be? Like, all right, I know all these secrets. I know everything from the beginning to the end. I have the, you know, the absolute top secret clearance. Wouldn't you be kind of nervous? Like, hey man, what if I let something slip in an email, or I just accidentally get like too drunk at a party?
I think less now, right?
I mean, I know what you're saying.
Like, wouldn't you just kind of worry that like at any moment, if you fuck up, you're gonna either be sued and jailed or Epstein?
From 1947 through like 2000, it'd be a lot scarier to like know something you weren't supposed to know. I think now it's like, I mean, it seems like now you'd be less danger, right? I mean,
I could see back then, especially, it'd be easier to kill you.
Yeah,
definitely easier to get back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're always surrounded by a certain class of people.
Hey, if everyone in your group is like, we're gonna keep the secret, and then you're the one guy who doesn't keep the secret, and it's like it's been known since day one. Like, if you fucking try to spill this shit, we're gonna kill your ass, right? Otherwise, you're our dog. Then, well, fuck, man. I mean, you made that decision, right? You know, kind of thing.
You're sympathizing with the guy who lobbed him out the window right now.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you know, people do risk their lives to get out the truth sometimes, right? I mean, it's shown throughout history, and you know, that could be an example of such a situation. I'm not trying to sympathize with anyone, but it's like, I don't know, it's just weird, man. Why does it always seem, with all this evidence, that everything's got to be hidden from the public? I mean, I was seeing some shit on this Majestic 12 where, oh man, I don't know if you guys saw this. There's this guy who is the grandson of a military personnel who supposedly, like around that time with this whole Majestic 12 and all this stuff, they were doing this project. Fuck, I have it written down somewhere. I'm not going to be able to recall it quickly enough, but it's a project something or other. Project Solar Warden. Project Solar Warden, in which what they did was they took military personnel and they injected them with viruses as experiments.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the whole point of it was to genetically alter their DNA through viruses. Okay. And so what happens? This guy's grandson, so the guy, the grandfather or whatever, he was part of that. He was in the military. His grandson, starting at the age of 6, claims that at that age, government officials kept him under watch from 6 to 17 years old and all of it was related to genetical modifications based on his family lineage. When he turned 18, he quote unquote graduated to this new class of individuals in which were given all kinds of information, including we're going to keep a watch on individuals on Earth that are not humans, but they look like humans, and all kinds of crazy shit, man. What is this guy on there? How you can't even think? I couldn't even imagine that story. How you think of that shit, right? I mean, there's something there, and the fact that this Project Solar Wind and Project White Coat existed, it's a thing, makes you wonder.
Dude, who's coming up with these names? Majestic 12? That sounds like a cowboy film.
They're
And,
majestic.
and then MJ12 sounds like either a gang or some like teeny bopper boy band. Like I want to be
contrary.
I want to be in the room where they figure out like what the names are for these projects.
I'll be like, it's Project.
I legit thought you guys were talking about that Western movie.
Magnificent Seven.
I had to Google what the fuck MJ12 was.
There's a funny one with Adam Sandler, like a spoof one on that. You ever seen that one?
Yeah, yeah, dude.
That one's kind of funny, actually.
You know those movies, those Adam Sandler movies, to be honest with you, like, and I was arguing with our other mutual buddy the other day about it, and because he's like, they're all stupid. And I was
They're
like,
trash. They suck.
I like them, dude. I like them.
I think they're great.
Hey, dude, I know you watch trashy horror movies. I know you do it. I know you watch trashy movies.
I watch a lot of trash, dude. I watched some of the most garbage movies ever, and I watched those Sandler movies, and like,
I hate movies.
I don't know. It doesn't even actually. I don't even laugh at how dumb they are. It's kind of, it makes me cringe because it's like really bad.
Well, like the old ones or like the newer ones?
I like all of them.
Yeah, I like them.
I like old stuff, but like all the ones, like, I don't know.
Dude, that new one.
It's hit and miss. I wasn't a Zohan. I wasn't a Zohan guy.
Zohan. Maybe the best ever, dude.
That's what people say, dude. That shit didn't land with me. I don't like I don't even know half of the ones that he made recently.
You know, you lost a little bit of credibility when you say you didn't like Fight Club.
Whoa.
I didn't say I didn't like Fight Club.
You said it. Did I?
I didn't say I didn't like it. I said
I didn't.
I had
dislike it.
I didn't.
I didn't not like it. No, I liked Fight Club, but watching it afterwards, my opinion was heavily swayed by some movie critique podcast that I listened to, where they point out
swing in, man.
You see A Quiet Place?
Oh, they swayed me, dude. Donnie? They swayed me big time.
Hey, Donnie, did you see A Quiet Place?
No.
That was pretty good.
I wish I had a quiet place.
Me too, man.
I'm in here in the garage breathing a fucking forest fire, dude.
Two people have walked in.
Yeah, dude.
Get a beer.
The smoke today was really bad.
Was it?
Yeah, really bad. I think the air quality was like in the 160s, I think.
No shit.
Yeah.
But
I was watching again on the MJ12. There was some document that they were reviewing. I think it was on Ancient Aliens, I think. And even just some of the typing, some of like actually how there was the letter Z and how it appeared on the paper. Like that level of detail was pretty interesting.
But what's interesting is there was that God, what was his title? He would like work for the Navy and military, designing like engineering aerospace shit for a long time, rockets, all kinds of shit. I can't remember his name. He's like an older guy, but he knew a guy that was like a printer in the office at the same time, supposedly, that those documents were released, right, and printed. And he went and found out exactly like all those documents during that 1 or 2 years, the Z would always appear like that because like dust would accumulate for some reason on the Z button. I mean, that's fuck crazy, right? Like, you know, I mean,
and also the one of the hosts on Ancient Aliens, that dude who was in that clip, that guy's hair is amazing. That guy's hair needs his own like film.
There's so many funny memes of that dude's
shed hair.
That guy's hilarious.
It's like, yeah, I mean, like I was looking at him, like a lot of times we're looking at him like, what's he thinking in his brain right now? Is he like, oh, that's super interesting, or is he like, this person is that shit crazy? I don't know, dude.
Well,
I like the guy's hat, his field gear. He has like a whole Indiana Jones vibe to him. He's great.
He's not as
was there really so was there really 12 guys in the MJ-12?
Yeah, they have, dude. Oh man, I could get into like crazy lineage. Like supposedly, I don't want to like go fast forward a little bit because a lot of things I still want to say is that, but supposedly we have fucking shit on Mars and Moon for a long time before we even said to the public, right? And like, let's think of it. All these images from the moon and the Mars, go Google it. You find this shit anywhere. You see shit that's like, that's not a rock. There's no rocks I ever seen that looked like that in nature. And it's fucking humongous, right? It's fucking 400 feet high or whatever the fuck.
It's like a mini mall.
Yeah, I mean, what the fuck? Right?
It's like a racket. It's like, yeah. There's the 24-hour fitness over there, and there's Taco Bell.
But who knows? Like that shit could have been from like millions of years ago, and they don't want to say anything, right? But you can find the images and decide for yourself, right? And that's just the images they allow public. You know, there's leaked images that you could probably go find or whatever. But fact is, all of this Majestic 12 is consistent with this. And there was another project. Fuck, man, I'm not going to be able to find it, but it's way down here somewhere. There's another project.
I got a question.
Yeah.
What you just said, you're thinking there's a theory that some of the ancient civilizations that were here advanced so far that they've actually been to Mars and the moon and set up some shit, and then they eventually, you think the remains are still up there, died off civilizations that made it there?
Yeah, like the same fools that were here doing shit with us, they're same fools that were on like the close by planets. There's a lot of evidence now pointing towards Venus might have some shit even too, and that place is a fucking hellhole, right?
Yeah, there's like a theory that like what we're like the Earth is on like, are there like third or fourth wave of us, right?
Yeah, it's like a cycle.
Yeah, where we've just blown ourselves up and started over again. Yeah.
But the fact is, who knows? Do the people fucking face masks? Do the people that have shit on Mars?
They're creating all this work for me, dude.
I'm not. Look at me. What am I supposed to do? But who knows if it's people that went to Mars, or was it the Mars that came to Earth? Right? Like, there's shit on Mars. I mean, just if you look at those pictures and you go, oh yeah, that's a really nice rock that I saw a million times. No, right? There's rocks everywhere. And then there's this one fucking place that's like, well, that's doesn't look like a rock, you know, whatever. But
does it look like a building? What does it look like? There's
pyramids, there's facial structures, there's all kinds of shit, dude.
But also, if you look at the way the rocks are formed, like you can tell that there's definitely evidence that that water used to be there.
Oh yeah, water is there even now. They know that shit. So, you know, I've always thought Mars used to be a lot like Earth, and somehow its atmosphere got destroyed. Who knows how that happened, right? For all you know, could have been through a fucking nuclear warfare, through whatever. We don't know. But I don't know. Again, a little off topic here, but it is related because the Majestic 12 originally was designed to kind of keep everything secret. But sometimes there's evidence that suggests their secrecy ain't so secret, including Mars.
They made the comment in the documentary that there was the thought that there might be people right now living on the moon, on Mars, like colonies on Mars.
You see the hacker guy at the end of that one?
No.
Is a hacker guy. You can go look him up. His last name is McKinnon. I don't have his first name, but he basically got immediately arrested one day. It was like a whole team of fools that got him in London. And I don't remember if he was American or not, or if he was from Britain, but fact is he'd been for the past year like hacking NASA. And his claims are really astonishing. I mean, he has a whole Excel spreadsheet of people that supposedly are living on Mars right now. A whole spreadsheet. And he also claims that there's another spreadsheet and other information that suggests that meetings between us humanoids and non-humanoids that are humanoid looking, like extraterrestrial humanoids, take place more than you think. I mean, this is weird, wild shit, but I mean, what the fuck?
I'd be pretty irritated, dude, if there's a colony on Mars right now with a bunch of weird aliens. They're all living together and something I didn't even know about. I'm married now with kids like that, but 15 years ago, man, I would have hopped on a ship to go check that shit out, for sure.
You know what? We're going to be hopping on ships, go anywhere pretty soon. Look at all these people, like the rich guys that are going out on spaceships in outer space, right? Just for fun. They're like, yeah, man, it's a fun roller coaster.
We're going to be sitting on our porch being like, look at these young whippersnappers and their spaceships and shit.
These guys, their spaceship sucks.
Stay out of my airspace, you little bastards.
Yeah, stop sign. Yeah, I mean, see, Elon Musk, that he's about to put billboards in space. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, come on. What does that mean?
Dude, that just sounded so fucking annoying. Could you imagine going out?
I want to go to space.
In the stars, and you're gonna see a fucking billboard.
Nike, just do
First
it.
thing you see,
advertisements.
It's like blocking your view of the moon or something.
Like, yeah, dude. If
you know those the freeway, the fucking exit miles when it's like, it's like
it's coming up.
It's you're gonna see like one of those things that's gonna be like nothingness for 5 more light years.
Yeah,
it's a long time.
Next stop, Mars or the moon. Like,
yeah, right.
They always say it's like it's not no
exit.
Resources. It's no something. Not no resources.
Just like the people like on Mars, if there's people there, like what if they just got a hold of like our 90s R&B and like that's the only music? They're like, oh,
they're probably like, this is tight.
CDs.
It's nuts.
It's like that golden CD record that they put out in space, right?
We talked about before the space blindness, dude. You start cruising around space too long, you go blind.
Do you?
Yeah. I don't know exactly why.
Do you know what the timeline is? Sense. Because I think there's the record is just over a year, right?
And it's not every individual, but it's specific individuals. We talked on a podcast. We were talking about the space station. I actually remember Googling it when I was on there, but there's something to do with the gravity. So like, the theory is that if you could create like synthetic gravity, kind of like the movies and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. That could counter it, but there's a direct correlation relationship or whatever with the space blindness issues and not being any, not being.
Dude, it totally makes sense to me mathematically and physically. I mean, think of it. If you have less gravity, you're not being pulled as hard. Just think of it that way. You're being pulled all the time, constantly. And less gravity means you're not going to get pulled so hard. So your bone density and all your muscle mass and all that stuff is related to the gravitational effect on Earth, including your eyeballs, right? And eyeballs aren't just like a little fucking muscle over here in your tricep or whatever, man. That shit's sensitive, right? So like, I can imagine like your eyeballs start working like less hard. I'm just like, man, I don't want to work anymore. I don't know. It makes sense though, like intuitively.
I looked it up. There's like some specific reason why, like, I don't know if it's to do with the cones and the rods or like, with like, how the gravity specifically affects it. But yeah, that's like an issue. But I mean, sure, there'd be more issues. Yeah, I mean, like, we talked about this before too, but like somebody has had SpaceX, dude.
So
sex,
there's rules on the
but
ISS. There's rules.
Say it louder. I can't hear you, dude.
There are rules on the ISS. It's like no alcohol, no drugs, and then no sex.
Sounds like it sucks.
Sorry, I have to cut that out. Mr. Green, dude, it's illegal to jaywalk, all right? And I do that shit all the time. Somebody's having sex up there, dude. Come on. I mean, like, dude,
Dude, that'd be crazy. Men and women, have sex
there on for a year. And I mean, like, if you both are practical individuals at all, you'd be like, hey, SpaceX, first one, dude.
It's like the first thing. Step one.
Yeah. It's like, I wouldn't even be able to concentrate my little science experiments until we did it. Like,
everyone match up with each other. Pick a partner.
Pick a partner.
I mean, like, yeah, you imagine just being like, some single astronaut up there, just like, dude, like, yeah.
Well, dude, they have like
definitely
mission control in I think Houston has like cameras.
No problem, Houston.
Live cameras in there. Could you imagine like your mission control, you show up, you sit at your booth and you log in or however you do it, and you just see two naked people floating by the camera?
Dude, like those, I mean, they're super nerds too. So like, well, I haven't had sex for the first 30 years, so I might as well just keep the ball rolling.
Virgin astronauts. I've worked my whole life for this moment.
Yeah, I blow it off of finally getting laid, dude.
No, their whole goal is get laid.
I feel like they gotta have sex with me if I go to space, right? It's finally gonna happen.
Here's this rat.
Dude,
what I saw was that originally this was super secret, right? But then randomly there was this movie producer who happened to love UFOs a lot that got sent the anonymous film. Right? You see that? We're talking about the old school film. Gotta go to the store and develop it and la 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 la. And the film was 8 pages of classified documents sent from what seemed to be Albuquerque, New Mexico, but there was no return address.
The 70s or 80s, right? The years. It was like
you talking about Stanley Kubrick?
No, I'm talking about Jamie Chandry.
And so he gets that file with the thing, and then that's when like the investigation. We were talking earlier about the Z and all that weird shit. That's from that file, right? So,
well, yeah. But then a year later, another anonymous group supposedly claims they got other random films sent to them. But so the first one with the movie producer guy, that was 8 pages of what's called the Eisenhower brief. And so that was from the incoming first ever director of the CIA ever. Don't know his name, but you can look it up. And he sent this brief to Eisenhower because he was incoming president-elect. He had already been elected, but he wasn't president yet. And Truman was still on the scene. Now, of course, Eisenhower was the chief of the military during Truman. And he's incoming president. So the CIA, who Truman created, briefed this guy. Then that supposedly all got leaked somehow.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Oh, it's okay. I was just gonna say, but then a year later, another like thing got leaked, but it was more like a manual for the Majestic 12. And there's been a lot, like you're saying, with the Z thing, and there's been a authenticity like verified that this shit seems legit, right? And in that same manual, you had sketches of different types of what we refer to as UFOs now, cigar-shaped things, triangular-shaped things, half like ice cream cone things. And, it's like okay, well, they did all this cross-checking to make sure it was authentic. It sure seems authentic. And why would someone leak it? And, you know, who knows? There's people have all kinds of jobs. And if I was all fucking pissed that you wouldn't let me release this, maybe I'm the guy that releases it or whatever, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just crazy because
makes
that
them
same
safer too, right?
What?
It makes you safer too. It's like if you're like really worried about your safety, and then because of information you know, and you somehow are able to push it out, make it mainstream, now you become more safe now because it's, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, yeah. But those same manual even said like, here is the exact steps and processes when we interact with beings from other planets that exist here. We're going to meet up at a mutually agreed location at a military base many times, sometimes other places, mutually agreed. I mean, there's all this shit, man. Uh, you know, you could dive into it, but most people don't want to take the time to scratch the surface. So is it real? It seems too coincidental to be not real, in my opinion.
And I sat there looking at those documents and watched the documentary, and I've seen the documents online, other YouTube videos and such, and you're looking at them, and obviously it's going to cross your mind. It's natural to be like, hey, from my standpoint, looking at a screen, it's really difficult for me. I'm taking everything at face value that those exist. That being said, like there is a lot of evidence that they are legitimate government documents. I was hoping that when the the whole like document release thing came out, the stuff like that would have came out. But like, hey, it's from the 40s. Here it is. It's some ancient shit. But it's like nothing like that awesome came out of that, as we all know.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
But like
we all kind of knew they weren't gonna,
it's easy for them to turn around now and be like, hey, fucking see, there was nothing anyways. It's like more of the same. The documents being released is like more of the same because they're like, hey, there wasn't anything. So see, there wasn't anything really anyways, except that we can't really explain these few things. And it's, I don't know.
Oh no, the majority of them they couldn't explain.
Yeah, you're right. What's interesting to me about this whole thing, Majestic 12, and it really got me thinking, just to kind of like, even past the UFO thing. It's almost like they created a machine that they lost control of, right? Because if you look at if you start looking at like this machine's created for this one instance, right? But how it could easily evolve into, we have this other thing. It's not UFO related, but it's kind of fucked up and whatever, this and that. And we have this group of really smart people. Let's let them handle it. And then over time, that Majestic 12 entity, as this name changes, like all like entities do in the military and in like intelligence communities, change over time because they become too well known. So does their responsibilities, and like the long-term results of that is that you have like kind of you have like a lot of power with a small amount of people. You know what I mean? That could be one thing that I always kind of think about is like, how much of this conspiracy stuff do I really believe when it not I mean, obviously I'm a big believer in UFOs, but like a lot of other things, there's like so much, in the conspiracy world, there's so much. But the thought that there is like this group that's higher than like the president intelligence wise is like something from like, Transformers, right? Or Independence
Where is
Day.
it?
No, but I'm going there with that direction. It's like that's kind of like you naturally believe once you've worked in kind of this environment. And but then honestly, how would you fucking know? And it's kind of scary to think that there might be, because everybody's always talking about, like, I think it's very convenient when you're arguing, especially about money and power and this and that, to be like, oh, the strings are just being pulled by, the powers that be. And like, well, if you ask, I mean, honestly, with all the news and everything going on, if you sit down and you ask them, man, hey, what are the fucking powers that be? they don't have a fucking answer. They'd be like, oh, the corporations are getting all corporate-y, right? It's like a South Park fucking episode, right?
Yeah.
But when the Majestic 12 thing, it's interesting to think about there actually being a table. It's like, of dudes that was an entity that was supposed to basically just be involved in the cover up. Well, not initially, but the decision to make the cover up for the Roswell incident, then maybe evolved into some sort of government agency that's still being funded somehow. It's like old mafia dudes, Dude, I'm just gonna keep talking so you don't pop up because it's more work for me.
No, I get it though. Like, with the whole government stuff and a group above the president. I don't know if they're above the president, but that line from Independence Day, where the president asks one of his advisors, like, why wasn't I made aware of this? He uses the term, I think it was, I want to say probable deniability, I think, or something along those lines.
It's plausible
deniability. Yeah. It makes sense that the president doesn't need to know about certain things. It's not necessarily above his head, but when you start to calculate like long-term or full-term or career people in career positions,
the president has gained a significant amount of power in the last 30 to 40 years.
But I think in the end, there are probably organizations that that are above the president. The president shouldn't have absolute power. And if they want to keep this shit secret, why are you going to spill the beans to one specific person when you've kept it secret over decades and decades amongst a group of individuals sworn to it, right?
And especially if that individual only has 2 terms in office, max 8 years.
Well, I'm sure certain people do have access to information, like
100%.
these special committees that are like invested in national security and stuff like that. I think they probably have access to something that most 99.9% of people don't, right? But it's just, I think that's just part of the game. That's just the part of how it was established, and I guess that's kind of the point of part of this Majestic 12 is that was established. It has continued in one way or another for many years, and it's morphed into different things. And some of them have been deflections. Like in some ways, Project Blue Book is a deflection in the sense that the goal was to kind of dismiss all this stuff, but they happened to hire the scientists who didn't want to necessarily agree with all that shit,
I forget. When did MJ12 end?
Whenever they changed the name, man, because it sure probably still exists. Yeah, I mean, nobody really. But like, yeah, that dude, oh fuck. So basically the guy who's overseeing the investigation Project Blue Book, that guy, like that they mentioned in the documentary, and like we had talked about this before, was basically just a method of counterintelligence. Was he's just like, they're basically like, well, we're getting kind of pinned here. We have to come up with, I don't know, excuse, but basically like, rationale for all these things that nobody can understand. So we'll just have a guy basically look at all this information. And then when they found out, when they figured out they couldn't figure out the answer to all these different sightings and these different, exposures to like, UFOs, etc., he basically came out and said, well, it's it doesn't look, I mean, we can't explain any of these things, but this doesn't look like that they're real. It's and that's where the swamp gas joke came from. It's from that.
Yeah.
Shit, I'm looking it up.
Hey, I'm gonna have to go soon, but I want to say this soon because I think it's pretty significant. Is that there is a person back when the Roswell and Majestic 12 all got started. He was supposedly part of the Majestic 12, and his name is General Twining.
Yep.
And that guy was one of the main guys in charge to cover up like the whole Roswell stuff after the news reports came out that we had the UFO and all that stuff. So they covered up. Now, this same guy coordinated with, at that time, people of the utmost like scientific expertise, right? And I believe it was Oppenheimer, but I don't have it in my notes, but it could have been Oppenheimer. It could have been the other guy from Germany, but I believe it was Oppenheimer. And his judgment was that the thing that crashed had a system of propulsion that was based on atomic level. And this is going back to the 40s.
It was Oppenheimer.
I thought it was Oppenheimer. And so, they concluded that, and that's in the 40s, late 40s. And now you have people like Bob Lazar now who claim to have been working in like the special areas of Area 51 and even subsets of it that say that's exactly what the propulsion system is. It's like a whole system where the whole thing is the same thing and there's no disconnect. Like it's all a whole system, and the atomic energy stores the energy used in certain spots. And then you have people like Bob Lazar now saying like, yeah, I worked on that shit. I tried to back engineer it. I mean, it's just, to me, it's too ironic, man. Why would people come out there with weird shit like that? Like, unless it's on purpose, like I'm gonna pay you $10 million to go out there and say this shit. I don't know why they do that, but it's just crazy.
That's a good point, dude. I mean, like, honestly, like, I think that people they get too casual, just assuming that like, oh, there's a conspiracy. Like, people are just making that shit. They're just making that up, this and that. And like, there's certain things where it's like, like you question, look at it, like, was that document real, or that kind of person's like, seems kind of off to me. But then you get people that have like a lot to lose, and they come out and say something it's completely logical. Hey, I saw that shit. Like, Dave Frazier, right? It's like Captain Frazier. I mean, it's Dave, right? Doesn't matter. Yeah. Captain Frazier. It's like, this guy's Air Force pilot. He comes out and he's like, hey, we saw this shit. And then here come the skeptics, which is fine. It's that's the right answer for a scientific process, to have skeptics and be able to prove it. But he's not making that shit up, and he's not going to be like, like a lot of the skeptics with that specific one, just an example, was that he just didn't see what he thought he was seeing. The radar coming fucked up as that. It's like, bro, like if I'm driving down the street and I see a purple car and I'm like, holy shit, purple car is not supposed to be on the street. I'm just making this weird story up. And so then I call the police. I'm like, hey, there's a purple car there. Like, they're not going to question me at all. Like that guy is not only a trained pilot, a trained observer. So they come back to this stuff, like, I don't know. I think that what you're saying, and I agree, is that like a lot of this stuff, people say it. It's like, it's one thing to be like, yeah, 50 years ago, I saw this weird light. I think it was my grandma, some shit like that, But for someone to say they saw something really specific, like especially like a document or a specific instance in their life, and there's a lot of evidence to back, and be like, no, you're crazy. It's weird that people would automatically be like, yeah, man, since that's kind of weird, we're just going to call him crazy, We're going to call that, we're just going to say it's bullshit.
Right. There's too many dots that connect, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
All this weird shit. Like, like for instance, why would someone waste all their time to produce fake documents and then put them on 35 millimeter film, ship them from an unknown address to some random person who knows a guy who happens to be expertise on like printing in the government from 40 years ago? Like, what is that? Like, I don't know. Like,
it's not impossible, but it's not likely.
Yeah, right, exactly. It could happen, right? You could pull the scheme, but who would do that unless there's an elaborate like thing, like they did this on purpose just to trick everyone to think something different than the opposite of what the whole point of it is, right? I don't know, man.
It's weird to think that way, bro, because you think that like, because now you're like looking at, you're connecting the dots, not just from this, but from all the shit that happened around Roswell, right? And all the shit that happened around this and that and this. And you're like, okay, well, if this is an elaborate hoax, and that must be connected, and that's an elaborate hoax. And it's like, okay, well, now you're really putting your faith in the ability of humans to like coordinate and not tell anybody what they're doing. And yeah, this
right. Information's gonna get out, and it has. And I think sometimes people underestimate human beings in general. Like most people can think and figure shit out. You know, of course, obviously, there's some people it's not necessarily true, but you know, if you give the facts and you take your time and you read through all this shit and you look at all the evidence, you conclude something. And for someone, at least myself, that says, you know, I'm a pretty smart guy and I'm going to conclude something that makes no sense. No, I'm going to conclude what makes sense, right? And what makes sense is exactly what we've been describing, is that absolutely there has been a secret entity of the government. We've seen it through Project Blue Book. I think Majestic 12 is directly related to it as an origin. All these other entities, it's been going on for decades. And just now people are starting to catch on. And now people are like, all right. The government's like, we'll let you have a little piece here and there. Let you have a little Kit Kat, you know, all that stuff.
I wonder
and how then much people are like, oh, yeah, thanks.
I mean, shit, dude, like, you know, maybe they'll let us, or just maybe it's like, well, when you have enough human, like there's, you know, there's selection processes in the military that are supposed to be secret that you can go online and read blogs about, and they literally tried. So it's like, it's a matter of time, right? Like, you know, you have maybe those first 12 dudes, one of them opened his mouth, they pushed him out a window. And then, like, well, there was the next 12 dudes, the next 12 dudes, the next 12 dudes, and the private, and one of them tells their wife a little piece, one of them tells their cousin, and that shit escalates. And after 50, 60 years, you know, you spread out to maybe an umbrella of 100 people. One of those assholes can go on the internet. You know what I mean? Like, it's only a matter of time when you have something like that to be a secret, you know? Yeah.
So I think it's already happening. And, you know, you can't stop shit with social media nowadays. Right. Like, I mean, one little thing, little viral, whatever.
The most convenient fucking devil.
Yeah, I still feel like this whole subject of like other intelligent species existing before we did, which scientifically makes a lot of sense, but for the general public, it's like that's not a thing they want to accept.
Well, of course, man, we're the humans are the most narcissistic beings in the world. Well, I guess we're the only ones who are conscious.
Well, I mean, it depends on country too, right? I feel like that attitude.
Yeah, country and culture.
Absolutely. And you look at that narcissism, it's like, you know, we want to believe we're special, man. We're the only ones who have been here. Just this could suggest that there was another set of humans before the primordial soup is just
also that's not within certain religious beliefs too, you know. So
well, and it's weird because I've seen a lot of things that it is consistent, but then certain, you know, like branches or whatever want to say no. But what if you're on the branch that says this is all part of our origin story, right? And like
science,
or like that. I mean, think of it like there's a lot of origin stories that basically refer to alien species or whatever you want to call them, advanced humanoids, whatever, that kind of created their culture, right? I mean, that's a lot of the original or creation stories, is something of that type. And so it's like, then you say, nah, what makes more sense is if an ominous being just exists beyond our understanding, and that is how it all happened. But scientifically, that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean?
I mean, some of the origin stories, yeah, like, or even just some of like the like super ancient history, it's very interesting correlating with aliens and stuff, you know, Egyptians, Mayans, etc. But some origin stories are like, and then that tree was planted and it was the first mother, and then it made love with the moon, the first father, and then we were like, okay, no, that's not what happened at all.
Yeah, that, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But how about like ancient stories like there was a fucking like battle of other species of the gods shooting each other in the skies and stuff like this, and then it's like, oh, actually there's a lot of those. all over the fucking earth, right?
Star Wars. Do we think Star Wars is real?
No, never. I'll never go there.
I wish it was, but you know.
I gotta go there, man. It's late.
Hey, good to see you guys. See you, man.